Distilled wisdom for an inspired life. Vulnerability is weakness. Or at least, that's what our society equates it with. When you think of vulnerability as an expression of weakness, you will do everything to avoid it. But in fact, vulnerability is strength. Vulnerability is the core of fear, of shame and our struggle with worthiness, yes. But it's also the birthplace of love and joy. It's the birthplace of feeling a sense of belonging. Actually, vulnerability is at the core of all our emotions. And how you handle it is what it turns into. If you embrace it, it supports you. And if you reject it, it sabotages you. Being vulnerable means showing up even when you're not able to predict the outcome. Or how Brené Brown puts it, vulnerability is saying I love you first. Vulnerability is also the cornerstone of courage. Most courageous people feel brave and afraid at the very same time. Courage means leaning into vulnerability and staying curious, knowing that it can lead to hurt, disappointment, and failure. Courage means doing the right thing anyway. And courage means showing up within your integrity when it's most difficult. Sounds tough? It is. And this is the reason why courage is so rare. Now, being a leader requires vulnerability and courage. You need the will to put what's right over what's comfortable. You need to put what's right over what's fun and easy to achieve. Excellent leaders feel fear and pain too, but they go through the pain when it's necessary. And that's what separates them from ordinary leaders. As a leader, you need to find the courage to surface emotions of the people you lead. Emotions that your people feel but aren't aware of, or emotions that they are unable to express. According to Brené, brave leaders show up the following way. They say, I see you, I hear you, I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to keep listening and asking questions. She calls leaders that show up this way daring leaders. Being a daring leader also requires catching people doing things right, which often requires a mind shift. Shift from I want to be right to I want to get it right. Shift from I want to outshine everybody else to I want to help my team shine. Excellent leadership is ultimately about serving. Daring leaders make an active choice for empathy. Choosing empathy means taking someone else's perspective. It's a vulnerable choice because it means feeling what somebody else is feeling, often in a situation where the person needs help. It means going to the heart of that emotion within yourself. Empathy is about deeply connecting to emotion. Empathy means feeling and connecting with somebody. And the prerequisite for empathy is building emotional literacy. Because processing an emotion is nearly impossible if you can't identify and name it. Only if we understand the emotion, we can fully feel with somebody. Empathy is at the heart of connecting with people, and daring leaders know this. But what might sound easy can be very difficult to apply. And the reason behind this is shame. We all feel shame at times. It's one of the most primitive human emotions and very difficult to overcome. It's the feeling that tells us you're not good enough. You're not worthy of connection, not worthy of belonging, not worthy of love. And this can massively damage our sense of self-worth. It's even worse than humiliation, because in shame we internalize the failure comment. Shame is the fear of disconnection, and it drives disconnection at the same time. The less you talk about it, the more power it has over you. Shame derives its power from being unspoken. But here's the good news. It's possible to build shame resilience. So you can not only navigate through the feeling of shame, but in fact get stronger with every shame experience. Build up emotional literacy, create awareness, realize the emotions you live through, and it'll become easier for you to move from shame to empathy. Feeling shame is uncomfortable, so a lot of people try to numb it. They try to make it go away just somehow. People do this with alcohol and drugs, but also with a whole series of far less obvious behaviors, such as excessive working, perfectionism of any kind, or shopping, just to name a few. Now you might say, there's really nothing wrong with working a lot, is there? Not with working a lot as such. It's getting problematic if excessive working is an unconscious choice, if you slip into it, if it happens outside of your awareness. And it's not possible to selectively numb emotion. Subduing pain means subduing joy as well. And do you really want to live in a world full of almost identical shades of grey? Such a world looks pretty dead to me. We all feel pain at times, but we can deal with it in very different ways. We can suppress it, or we can let it in, we can accept it. Suppressing is what makes us sick in the long run. Accepting is what makes us feel alive. Acceptance not only helps us to get out of the resistance mode, it helps us to enjoy joyful times on a deeper level. And if you build an emotional reserve too, you're on a good way of becoming highly resilient. As a daring leader, you shouldn't only make sure your people can be themselves, you should also make sure that you are able to share your most authentic self with the world. When we feel fear or driven by certain emotions, we put up our armor. We protect ourselves. But this is not the only thing we do. We shield ourselves from positive influences too. You just can't have one without the other. And it's not possible to grow to one's full potential behind armor. Carrying it around alone requires so much energy. On the other hand, we shouldn't let all feedback touch our heart unfiltered. This would hurt too much. So look for the middle way. Engage with discomfort. Build up grounded confidence. Or Brené would say, rumble with vulnerability. Rumbling with vulnerability helps to leave the state of self-protection and lets you operate from a state of self-awareness. It prepares you to learn to rise, and it supports you to build trust. Daring leaders master the process of building trust. They know that trust building is a slow, iterative process, and they know that it takes time. They know that trusting others starts with trusting oneself. They know that trust is built in the smallest of moments, by showing genuine care, through listening and through connecting to people's hearts. This doesn't mean you should avoid tough conversations. On the contrary, avoiding tough conversations corrodes trust and leads to a lack of clarity. Meaningful feedback means getting to the heart of issues, not dodging around them. Do it carefully, but try to hit the target in the center. Leading those conversations is a trust builder, even though it feels uncomfortable in the moment. So make building trust your priority. Many people lead from a place of hurt and pain and use their power to fill the gap of self-worth. This is the safest way to drive people away from you. Instead, lead from a place of care and connection. Try to understand what drives the people you lead. What values do they have? What motivates them to get up every day? And let them know how their work contributes to bigger goals. People do want to know the why behind the what more than ever. In short, just lead from the heart. Also respect and leverage different views in your team. Different views and ideas are the source of creativity. But take care that discussions are not conducted on the personal level. Minu Shafiq boils the underlying change in the workplace down to, in the past, jobs were about muscles. Now, they're about brains, and in the future, they'll be about heart. A lot of daring leaders have made hurtful experiences in their life. It's important that we own those hurtful stories fully. If we deny to do this, then they own us. Then they drive our emotions, they drive our thinking and our leading. Only if we have the courage to walk into our hard stories, we own them. Then we have the chance to understand how they influence us, and we get to write new endings. This way, we can even get stronger with every painful story. Living into your values means practicing what you preach. For doing so, your values should be so crystallized, so precise and clear in your brains that they don't feel like a choice, but a definition of yourself. Clearly defined values are the backbone for you to align your intentions with your thoughts and behaviors. Bringing your values to life implies deriving actions from them. Living like this will make it easier for you to avoid shaming and blaming. Instead, it will foster the process of creating space to understand different perspectives and holding people accountable. In business practice, resilience is taught most often after hard setbacks. When you're down. Though this is understandable, teaching it upfront would be much more effective. Engaging in courageous behavior becomes much easier when you know that you will be able to get back on your feet in the case of failure. When risers are getting hooked on something, they immediately recognize it and they get curious about it. They want to understand. Taking a deep breath and staying calm helps in such situations to examine what just happened and to avoid being driven by emotion. Risers are connected with their bodies. And when emotions arise, they pay attention. They stay calm because they're emotionally grounded. And they rise because they bring light to whatever lies underneath those emotional responses. So what's the takeaway? As a leader, you need courage. And this implies putting what's right over what's fun and easy to achieve. Lead from a place of care and connection. Build up emotional literacy to actively practice empathy. Empathy is about understanding your own emotions in the first place. If you feel pain, just let it in. Accept it. This will help you to get out of the resistance mode. Share your most authentic self with the world and build up grounded confidence. Trusting others starts with trusting oneself. Try to understand the people you lead, their motivations, their values. In short, lead from the heart. Define your own values crystal clear, and they will serve you as a backbone for aligning your intentions with your thoughts and behaviors. And connect yourself with your body so you can recognize arising emotions and act from a position of being emotionally grounded. And last but not least, don't let somebody else define success for you. It's time for you to ask what really brings lasting joy and meaning to my life.